Oil tankers, crude price ticker climbing. What if I told you that Donald Trump is trapped, not by his enemies, but by his own mouth? And the exit door doesn't just cost him his pride. It could cost you $10 a gallon at the pump, 15% inflation, and a global economy that doesn't recover for a decade. The Persian Gulf has become the Hotel California for Donald Trump. He checked in. He cannot check out. And here's the brutal truth nobody in Washington will say out loud. He has no winning move. Option 1, he walks away. That's not viable. His base sees it as surrender. Option 2, he escalates, bombs Iran again, harder this time. Here's what the intelligence community actually knows, and what President Trump has been telling the public is flat out wrong. The CIA quietly told the New York Times, not Fox, not MSNBC, the Times, that Iran still has over 90% of its missile capability intact. Its launchers, its drone systems, its satellite-linked targeting networks, all of it, fully operational. Iran is not on its last legs. Iran was never on its last legs. And now it's been rearmed. Russian radar technology, Chinese cruise missiles practically hypersonic in speed, designed specifically to sink U.S. Navy capital ships, positioned in caves along Iran's southern coastline, right now, as we speak. Chinese technicians on the ground with those weapons, Chinese and Russian technicians, both. And people in Washington say, how could they do that? Are you serious? What do you think we've been doing in Ukraine for 3 years? You send weapons, trainers, advisors, to fight a proxy war against Russia, and you're shocked they return the favor? This is the world we built. We just don't like living in it. If this conversation is giving you clarity on things the mainstream media is completely burying, hit subscribe. We do this every week. No spin, no narrative management, just real analysis from people who've actually sat inside these systems. Now, back to the Colonel. Let's talk about what this actually costs the American family, not the Pentagon, not Raytheon. The family filling up their tank on a Tuesday morning. The Strait of Hormuz remains effectively under Iranian influence. WTI crude is already above $100 a barrel. If this escalates again, and I believe it will, you are looking at $200 a barrel before year's end. That's not a prediction, that's arithmetic. And here's what makes this genuinely dangerous. This isn't happening in a vacuum. The U.S. debt to GDP ratio is over 125% and climbing. Bond yields are rising globally. The 10-year Treasury yield hits 5%. And suddenly the interest payment on America's debt becomes unserviceable. We haven't seen this combination since the 1970s. Except in the 1970s, the debt to GDP ratio was under 35%. We are in genuinely uncharted territory. Inflation at 10, 12, maybe 15% is not a worst case scenario anymore. It is a realistic projection. Not yet. Americans don't pay attention to geopolitics. They pay attention to the pump. The moment that needle hits $10 a gallon, that's when Washington gets its education. And by that point, the damage is already done. Supply chains aren't disrupted. They're destroyed. The Gulf needs a decade to recover if the bombing stops today. If it starts again, worse than before, we're talking about a generation. The Trump administration is calling the China summit a win. You were watching the same summit. What did you see? I saw Xi Jinping stand up in front of the world's cameras, with Donald Trump sitting across from him, and effectively say, you are a declining power. We are a rising one. You need us. We do not need you. That was the message, delivered politely, but unmistakably. China will not help us with Iran. Russia will not help us with Iran. They decided years ago, if Iran falls to American military pressure, they're next on the menu. So they armed Iran. They're watching. And Xi Jinping is privately thrilled that Iran has held, because it sends one message to every military planner in Beijing. Taiwan is off the table. America just proved it doesn't have the staying power. Sits down with Xi, basking in it. And people say, but Russia and China don't really trust each other. This has nothing to do with trust. Russia has every resource China needs: oil, gas, minerals, land corridor through Central Asia. China has the largest manufacturing base in human history. It's not friendship, it's symbiosis, and it is working against us right now, today. Let's pull back to 30,000 feet. How do you expect the map of global power to look when all of these conflicts finally settle? Multipolar. Definitively, irreversibly multipolar. And America will look not like a defeated nation, but like Britain after World War II, exhausted, overextended, quietly withdrawing from military colonies it can no longer afford to maintain. Germany is already signaling it wants American forces out. South Korea has never truly been a sovereign state while we're there. We will leave these places. The only question is whether we leave with dignity or under fire. NATO is going the way of the buffalo. The EU, without Germany, is economically hollow. And when a new government takes power in Berlin, and I believe it will be soon, the first two things it will do are cut support to Kyiv, because 50% of everything sent there has been stolen and laundered through shell accounts in Cyprus and Albania, and buy energy from Russia. That ends NATO as a functional alliance. Full stop. Israel faces a stark binary. When America comes home, and we are coming home, Israel has to make a choice it has never had to make before. Become a normal nation state that lives within the rules of its region, or face consequences we cannot protect it from. Turkey is awakening. The Ottoman appetite is returning. Pakistan is already replacing U.S. forces in Saudi Arabia. The entire architecture of the Middle East we spent 80 years building, it's being demolished. Right now. Absolutely not. There are 20 to 30,000 North Korean troops in Belarus right now, north of Kyiv. Russian forces to the east. Belarusian forces alongside them. What does that look like to any military strategist? A pincer, an envelopment. Kyiv is going to be surrounded. And in the south, 150 to 200,000 Russian troops are positioned to cross the Dnieper at Zaporizhia. The target? Odessa. A Russian-speaking city, Russian-built, Russian since 1776, longer than the United States has existed as a country. The Russians are going to take it back. And they have not forgotten what happened the last time they were there. People herded into buildings and burned alive. That debt gets settled. And then Ukraine, as it exists today, ceases to exist. It returns to what it was historically, a landlocked agricultural plain. Whether that's viable as a state, I genuinely don't know. But Germany leaving NATO removes the last serious argument for continued Western resistance. The war ends, not with a treaty, with exhaustion. Iran, 90% operational, not defeated. China, armed Iran, abandoned the dollar and told Trump he's losing, to his face. Russia, surrounding Kyiv, targeting Odessa. America, 125% debt to GDP. $200 oil incoming, no exit strategy. The Middle East architecture we built being demolished. Macgregor writes every week at the Macgregor Warrior Substack, including his full plan to reform America's warfare state, written for RFK Jr., and his Senate Armed Services testimony. The links are in the description. And if this conversation changed the way you see what's happening in the world, share this video with one person who needs to hear it. Not because of the algorithm, because this matters. Subscribe if you haven't. Drop your question in the comments. Can Trump get out of the Persian Gulf without breaking the American economy? We read every single one.